Good morning. I'm Buster Wright from Berry College, and I want to talk this morning a little bit about the Berry Center for Integrity and Leadership and some incredibly special guests who we have in our lecture series today. A number of years ago, the Center for Integrity and Leadership was started out of a desire to help young people beyond being just educated to be ready for the world. There are always going to be complex events, horrible events, violence, and whatnot, most especially in this world we have today with polarization and what's going on in the world. And what we desire to do, both academically and experientially, is to prepare those young people for life after graduation here. So the Berry Center for Integrity and Leadership was started 11 years ago with the mentor program, where local people from the Rome community come who are experts in their field, who are successful people, not only in their businesses and their careers, but also in the community and in their families. And people who possess integrity in the way they do their work during the week. So they will meet, and they do meet, with a group of 6 students twice a month for an entire school year, where issues of leadership and integrity and current events are discussed, so that these students will have not only a mentor, but be able to discuss openly about current events and where they fit in that. One of the things that we've learned in leadership is you can't be a leader unless you understand yourself. And so we do a lot of work relative to that. And the academic piece, of course, covers the history of leadership and in government and in business and in music. So as a part of the Berry Center for Integrity and Leadership, we have a lecture series where each year we try to bring someone who is a well-known, influential leader or leaders in the world to meet with our Berry students to further amplify and reinforce the things that we're trying to do for them. We see this as important today, even more than when it began. So as a result of that, today, this morning, we have Makoto Fujimura and we have Haejin with us, who are widely known throughout the world in arts, in leadership, in dealing with issues not only personally, but dealing with cultural issues. And they are perfect examples of what we're trying to do and speak far more eloquently about what the Berry Center Integrity and Leadership is about. So with that, good morning.
Good morning.
We're honored that you're here. It's overwhelming. We wish you could stay here all through the year. So please excuse me, but I have questions I have written down.
Yes.
And we'll just go through these, and if something happens or something comes up in addition to one of these, please feel free to just go forward with that. And I'll start with a softball question, an easy one. If you could give just one piece of advice to our students today, what would that be?
Wow. That's a great question.
Can I go first? Let me think about it. That's not an easy question, actually.
It's not easy because it's only one.
Yeah.
So, there are so many. When I realized that I was called to be a lawyer and justice advocate, I went to my mentor and I asked him a question, how can I be part of this justice work? And it was more of a movement, because we know that the work of justice, and especially in the legal setting, it's not just you, it's not just one case that can make a difference. It has to be a movement of seeking justice. And he wisely told me, and this is now about 24 years ago, said, go out and build more organizations like mine, because we cannot do this work alone. We need friends, we need partners. So my advice to you, the students, is that find those friends, find those partners, because wherever you are, whatever industry that you're going to be in, that you feel called to, you cannot do the work alone. You're going to need friends, you're going to need partners. And I think college life is a perfect place that you start building that friendship, really genuine friendship.
Wow. Thank you. Top that.
No, I echo that. And what I tell young artists when I have the opportunity to speak into their lives is I try to figure out what they assume to be success. First of all, the definition of success. What are you trying to do in the world? And as I want to encourage them to be ambitious, I want to see them succeed, but let's define that first. And many young people struggle with this. They don't know what they're after, because their definition of success tends to be what society around them has told them without thinking about the basic principles. Or it could be something internal, or something that they've been assumed. It was assumed by the family or parents, or and so I work with them to get to where they can say that a real success is being able to define your own success. And whatever that may be, I want to help you get there, because that is not something that is universally homogeneous. It's something that only you know, and each person is created uniquely, has different circumstances to deal with, and success to me is being able to ask that question as applied to you. So that's what I say now. When I was an undergraduate, I began to see how this was so difficult to do. And because you're in a university that is presenting you with all these opportunities to have success, and that's what you buy into when you when you admitted and you join a university or you become a student, and so all of that assumption is heavy laden in the air, and so it takes a little bit of an artist coming in and pointing out some deeply seated belief systems or assumptions that has to be challenged. And I think a lot of people find that uncomfortable. But to me, and by the way, I say that not just to our young artists, but also to engineers, and also to potential CEOs of companies. And so it's to all people.
That's wonderful. Yes, thank you. So you create beauty. which distracts those who experience it
Yeah.
from the brokenness, the discord, violence, pain, inequity, and it offers an alternative. What other ways can people who aren't artists accomplish this?
Yeah. So first of all, let's define beauty, because it's defined differently. Western definition would be more about this perfection of. It could be something that is seen as cosmetic, and what is beautiful, maybe to some imperialistic power that is being exhibited in a painting. So when I started my career in New York in mid-90s, I had to, because at that time in New York art world, beauty as a word was a taboo word. You're not supposed to talk about beauty because it has been expelled from our world, and I was explicitly told not to use that word. And up to mid-2000, art schools were still saying that. Now it's changed, fortunately, but back then no one was speaking about beauty. So now the reason why I wanted to use that word was because my definition wasn't Western, it was Japanese. And Japanese definition of beauty is directly connected to sacrifice, directly connected to Silk Road, the cultures coming from India through China, Korea, Japan, and ending in Japan, refined there ultimately. But it is the definition that came through the ideogram of beauty is comprised of two ideograms stacked on top of each other. On top is sheep, and at the bottom is great. In China, what was beautiful was a fat sheep being offered at the autumn festival. That was the sign of beauty, abundance and beauty, and joy for community. Now, when it came down to Japan, it somehow in 10th century, in the first evidence of this is in waka poetry, but it became closely connected with cherry blossoms falling, something about death, right? So sheep being sacrificed, death, and then it became more about what they call pathos of things, or mono no aware is a Japanese term, that talks about beauty as sacrifice. So when I wrote after 9/11, having survived that day, I was trapped in the subway underneath as towers fell on top of me. It's a miracle that I survived. I was emailing to my friends, especially in Japan, who were really concerned about me because they saw the news and they knew I was there. And I said, I saw extreme beauty in the trauma. I saw rescue workers climbing up the falling towers. And to me, that if you had to define beauty of somebody losing their life for their strangers, not only friends, but strangers, that is the most beautiful thing you'll ever see. And this gallery owner in Osaka emailed me right back and said, there is this Japanese philosopher who talked about this, did you know? And he sent me a quote, and this is by Professor Imamichi of Tokyo University, aesthetics professor, who wrote that exact thing about those ideogram characters, that beauty is sacrificial sheep. It used to be fat sheep. Now in Japan, he said, it is as if what is truly beautiful is as if one will lay down his life for his friends. And so this was written maybe 10 years before 9/11. I was astonished to read this. And so Japanese definition of beauty would not bifurcate between all of us standing in front of a painting or listening to Brahms or Mozart and responding in such a way that invokes both the sacrificial nature of how a new world is opened up, or how you are helpless in some way, and trapped in whatever we may be struggling with. And yet there's a portal into a new creation. And to me, that narrative is so overwhelmingly comprehensive and integrated into the definition of beauty for me, the word that is closest in the Western sense is love. It's closer to that. So when Japanese struggle with the word love, unlike the Western culture, so they would say, the moon is beautiful when they love somebody, that they want to communicate their love. Because beauty in Japanese terms is closer to love, what we call love, than in what we think is the definition of love, that is superficial in our terms as well.
Fascinating. Just fascinating. So let's talk about this new beauty.
Yeah.
Practitioners of kintsugi
Yeah.
learn firsthand about rather simple
Yes.
techniques and materials
Yeah.
to save, strengthen,
Yeah.
repair, and bring new beauty to tangible broken things. The process begins by acknowledging that there is brokenness,
Yeah.
assessing the damage and what has been lost, and then following a process to accomplish that task at hand. Okay. How do we lead and support young people today to develop their technique to address the brokenness that they feel in themselves and they see in each other?
That's correct. Kintsugi is a venerable Japanese tradition, but we are finding out more and more that it's also in Korea, ubiquitous in their practice of. That's correct. You're saving broken ceramics. If you have a tea, it began as a tea tradition of tea masters serving important warlords in what is known as feudal wartime in Japan in 16th century. And then these teaware will break because Japan has so many earthquakes. And but instead of throwing them away, kintsugi tradition will allow the broken pieces to be mended, to be made new, and using lacquer and gold. So the resulting kintsugi bowl is far more valuable than the original, as valuable as original may have been. And this tradition is a way of looking at brokenness differently than the Western perfection of industrial ways of capturing and trying to, either discard the broken vessels and or patching it up as if nothing ever happened to it. Japanese aesthetic will say, when something breaks, that is a beginning of something new. That brokenness is a way to create something more beautiful than ever before. And that is remarkable because it's, to me, very theoretically, to me, kintsugi is very theological. Jesus' resurrection body, and he could have chosen to come back as anything. He's God. But he chose to come back as a human being. After all that he's been through, after all that he's suffered as a human being, he chose to come back as a glorified human being. Not only that, he chose to come back as a wounded, glorified human being with nail scars visible. And it is through his wounds that we are healed. What does that mean? Well, it has profound implications for our lives as followers of Christ and in the world. What wounds and trauma means. I don't have the answers to what that pregnant question asked, but all I know is that my wounds matter to God, that it is sacred too, because of what Christ has done on the cross, and now chosen to resurrect with these wounds. It's a portal into new creation. And whenever I think about my trauma, my darkness, my journey of brokenness, I am able to say, praise God for what I have gone through, because I can see just a glimpse, even though it might have been injustice, it might have been the circumstances that I had no control over, like 9/11, but and I'm still affected by it. It doesn't mean the wounds go away. Trauma is still there, the scar is there, the invisible fractures are still there, it comes out. But I am able to say that God is mending me through those fractures, that these things matter to God. And Haejin and I began Academy Kintsugi as a way to help others experience that healing and the ability for a body somatic experience to help us understand that severed neurons can be reconnected.
We call our kintsugi offering kintsugi experience because the kind of process that you recited really well is not something that you should just learn from a lecture, like know it as a head knowledge, but it's something that you have to experience, because through that experience you will become, well, you will at least get to know a little bit about what it means to be a kintsugi maker. Now, when you look at, when you have these young people that you care for, you educate, that you want to help, I think first thing as a kintsugi maker, once you have experienced kintsugi making, that you will know that the broken vessel is not a problem to solve. You are not doing problem solving here, because that's the fixing mindset. We're not here to fix the brokenness. You're actually being a co-creator with the original vessel maker. So when you look at the broken things, are you able to envision the new? That is not just a healthy, unbroken original piece, but something so new. Although the original integrity is intact because it will be repaired, but there is going to be something so new that's going to be new creation. So when you come in as a co-creator's posture rather than problem solver, you're going to come in with a trembling and awe. And that's the very first thing. And then when we look at brokenness and fracture and trauma, can we envision the beauty that is oncoming? So you will come in with so much hope and excitement, as much as the grieving that has to be part of it, because you have to recognize the beholding part of looking at and examining the trauma and staying with it. And I think when we have all these different youth, young people who are going through different kind of brokenness, you will also learn that because you have gone through this experience of making, some people need more of paying attention to the brokenness, because sometimes it's you don't even understand what that fracture is. Sometimes we have this hairline fractures that is almost unseen, but you can hear the hairline fracture in a mug cup when you pour coffee into it. So sometimes you need to hear it, not see it. So, but some young students will have very obvious trauma, but it may require longer beholding. Some young students may need to have this long period of actually sanding down that putty. And that is a long, grueling, but reflective process. Some young students may have this extravagant process of decorating with gold and becoming this no more ordinary, but regal, with this adorned with gold part. That process may be longer. So you'll be able to kind of discern, because you're co-creator, which part of this process each of these young students require. So I highly recommend that you experience it, so you don't just know it, but you understand it.
In a short period of time, I saw, because I was fortunate enough to be a part of the Kintsugi.
Yeah, that's so cool. So cool.
And it was fascinating to see young people who normally are fixers and address things at the moment, to basically look at it and live in it, and to not only repair but to create. It was fascinating.
Yes.
It works. Yeah. So let's take it one more step for you, Haejin. When I began to read Mako's books, the word artist comes up a lot. There are those of us who are not artists. I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't paint. So I felt sort of separated from that. He refers to you as an artist. And that resonates to me and gives me a different viewpoint of what an artist is. You have the Embers Project that you have started, where you are observing the brokenness, the injustice, and are making it better than it was in the beginning. A new beauty, a new life. Tell us a little bit about that and how that makes you and those who do things like that artists.
Yeah. Well, Embers International is a global nonprofit organization that serves the marginalized people, and especially those who are suffering from injustice in the darkest places. So right now we focus on our projects in India, helping the women who are trapped in sex trafficking and their children who are born into the brothels. And our goal is to end intergenerational exploitation onto intergenerational flourishing. Because we all know that we give something, we pass down something to the next generation. And our hope is that we will pass down something beautiful, something excellent, something good for them. But the children who are born into brothels, the legacy they receive is a legacy of violence and exploitation. And we know that that is not right, and that is injustice. So we come in as a group of people who are social workers, lawyers, and entrepreneurs, outreach people, pastors, to come alongside to help this intergenerational family to exit this life of exploitation and be reintegrated into the society. And we get to partner with just amazing organizations who are doing work in the local community. And we hire people who are all from the local area, who understand the people, understand the needs. And you are absolutely right that in this kintsugi process, we look forward to that new oncoming beauty that is better than before, that is not how they were born into, or the place that they were even even before the trafficking, but something even more powerful, more flourishing, more beautiful. So that, and my hope is that they're not going to be just free and flourishing, but they are going to be the ones who are going to say no more of darkness into this community that I was born into. So they become the leaders. They're going to be the ones who are creators and the makers of more beauty in that society. And I really consider myself an artist. And thanks to Mako's transformational view of what beauty is, what artist is, and what maker is. And because indeed we are makers. And I think when we say artist, it's a little more we feel like it's a loaded term, we don't deserve it. But when I change it to maker, we all make something. I mean, I'm sure you made breakfast this morning, right? For you, for yourself, for your family, I make programs, I make structures, and I make case before the court.
Beautiful contracts.
And yes. And so we are all makers of something. And as you see yourself as makers, creating something that is going to be true, good, and beautiful into this world, indeed, you are an artist. And the beautiful contract that Mako mentioned, even because, when we look at nonprofit work, charitable work, social services work, it's easier for us to think about, oh yes, we're creating beauty, creating something good. But what about corporate lawyers? What about litigators? And that I am one of them. But I still consider myself an artist, a maker, because I make an argument for the benefit of our client. And I present a case, and I present this beautiful contract before my client where they can enter into this relationship with another business, with another vendor, with another employee. So when you are thinking about creating something that is going to be beneficial towards the flourishing of this world, you are indeed an artist. But I think we forget to think about, in the process of making, what am I making towards? So as a justice advocate, it's easy for me to say we seek justice together. But what is the end goal of that justice? I am not seeking justice just for the sake of justice, because when injustice happened, that trauma, that suffering and pain, we can really turn back the time and get rid of it. My clients have already experienced it. So what I'm seeking is not getting rid of that pain because it's not possible. But what I'm seeking is the beauty that is going to be restored through this process of justice.
Wow.
So as a justice seeker, justice advocate, I'm actually a creator of beauty that is oncoming.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
You're a blessing to Berry College and its students,
Yeah.
which is why we're here.
Yes.
And I hope that bits and pieces of what you've told them and your time with them will look like that perfect kintsugi piece
Yeah.
when you're through.
Yeah, we are a kintsugi couple, and if I may, if I could just share the time with Pope Francis, we had a private 30-minute conversation with him, And he kept on telling us, and we were able to present this kintsugi bowl, which 15th century Korean bowl. It was a noodle bowl in Korea, but it was used in high tea ceremonies by very courageous tea masters who in feudal times served warlords who were about to invade Korea, Japanese warlords were about to invade Korea. And by the way, I'm of Japanese descent, and Haejin is from Korean descent. So our marriage is exactly exemplifying this conflict and resolution and what love can do. So this Korean bowl was broken, served in high tea, broken, and then mended in 18th century. So the tea masters' families held the broken pieces for several generations. And I think it's part of the assumption there that some traumas require multi-generations to even attempt to heal. So as we were presenting this kintsugi bowl that I designed the box, we presented it to Pope Francis. He kept on saying, you are the creators of beauty and goodness and beauty. And as we were leaving, he held me for a moment and he said, you're creating beauty into the world. And that is so important. The darkness is going to push back. But don't stop.
Wow.
And I came away from that meeting and I was telling Haejin on the way back, I don't think I've ever heard that from a leader, let alone a Christian leader. And I'm so grateful for those words and of exaltation for both of us, work of mercy, a work of goodness and beauty. That every time we are interviewed, every time I meet a young artist like we did last night, I tell them that story. You're creating good and beautiful. Do not stop, because it is hard work. The darkness will push back, but it is enough to do that, to commit to that, and to serve the world. Doesn't matter if anybody sees it. To God, this matters. And the work that artists do to create beauty into the world, justice advocates do to bring justice into the world, that is a noble sacrifice that God is pleased with. And it meant so much to both of us and accompanying sisters that brought us there, that I wanted to mention that.
That's marvelous.
Yeah.
That's marvelous. I pray that you mind what he said and that you continue.
Amen. Amen.
So, thank you
Thank
so
you.
very much. You're a blessing to us.
Yes.